Are you winning? Do you need help in your life or business? Could you use some inspiration, business strategies, and success principles? I'm Daniel Gomez, award-winning business coach, keynote speaker, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you create a successful life and elevate your business. Together, we will discover the keys that unlock your success and dreams. Welcome back to another edition of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you, and yes, we educate you. And today we have a special treat. We have someone amazing here today. I'll tell you what, I was able to be on her podcast, and Miss Tonya Gossage is an amazing human being. She just was so powerful just on the interview side of asking me the questions. I said, I need to have you on my show. Tonya, welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here, Daniel.
You know, I know the beautiful soul you are, the beautiful human being. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please.
Thank you, Daniel. So I'm Tonya Gossage with Gossage Performance Consulting. It's so good to be here. So I'm a high performance coach. I also do consulting, coaching, training, do some speaking, and then I'm a podcast host.
Well, you forgot you're a rock star too.
Oh, I'm a rock star and on my way to be a billionaire, Daniel. I must add that for sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen, get out your paper, because Tanya's going to drop some massive, massive wisdom and knowledge. And you're in for a special treat today. Tonya, you're a performance coach. Why do you see working with your clients? Why do many people underperform? I know it's a broad question, but give us like 2 or 3 gems maybe that we can take away.
You know, I would say, first of all, they underperform, number one, because they don't have the self-confidence in themselves. That's going to be, number one. They don't believe in themselves. Something in their past has happened that holds them back from giving everything they have every day. And I'll just tell you, back and I'll use today, Daniel, myself, in a lot of these scenarios, because I think that it helps to be relatable. But, oftentimes people, they want to perform, or they think they want to perform, but they just don't have the stamina to just give it everything that they have. And oftentimes it's a self-belief situation that keeps them held back from doing the things that they really want to do, because they'll push forward, then some unbelief holds them back. And it's something that comes to their memory from the past that just pulls them backwards and holds them back. And that's typically, I think, the main thing that keeps them from moving forward in their performance.
How important, I love what you said. So ladies and gentlemen, think about how we opened up with you today. I want you to do yourself a favor and get the piece of paper out that you have in front of you and rate yourself from a scale of 1 to 10 and rate yourself on self-confidence. Because I truly believe that without self-confidence, you can't win, right? You can't win in business. You can't win in life. And people can reflect that, right? People can feel that from you, whether you lack confidence or you have that self-confidence. If someone is in that state where they start doing that one thing moving forward, maybe for them as becoming an entrepreneur and starting that, or maybe even starting a podcast, and they do 2 or 3 episodes and then they self-sabotage and they don't do it. How do you work someone through the process of building that self-confidence within themselves? What are 2 or 3 action steps that you can take away, that we can take away from you today?
Number one is it's helping them go back and see where they had success previously. What have you done in the past that you were successful at? And helping them see where they did perform in the past and helping them understand how they felt through that. What were the joys of seeing that success? How did they feel? How did others promote them during that time? And then we ourselves, as we're mentoring them and coaching them, promoting them, and helping them see that every little step that they take is progress. Also, oftentimes, as we're helping them and guiding them through that fear factor, because oftentimes what they're feeling is fear from moving forward. Oftentimes, it's not something that they're feeling is maybe even not their fault. Something happened to them that's not their fault. But again, as they're moving towards those steps, just a little bit of progress is progress. And
Mm,
being proud of themselves, of what they did accomplish, and really understanding that that little step was huge to them. It
mm.
may look small to me, but to them, I know there's things that I'm going through right now that may be small to you because you've already gone past that. But to me, that step is so big that it is helping me go through those confidence steps. And so just knowing and being rewarded for each of those steps that I'm taking, and knowing that someone is there to hold my hand, and knowing that Tonya Gossage, as my mentor or as my coach or as my consultant, is proud of what I just did, that gives me the next step of confidence to go through that next step of whatever that is that I'm working with that individual on.
I love it. I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself this question. Where in the past have you had a victory? And
Mm-hmm.
where in the past did you win? And what I heard Tanya say is this, ladies and gentlemen, is if you already won once before,
Mm-hmm.
use that momentum to push you forward even
Yes.
more. Don't be hard on yourself. And I love what you said because, ladies and gentlemen, you need to hear this. The smallest step forward sometimes is a huge step that you can't see underneath the ground, right? In the spiritual realm and just in the fact that you didn't give up. Sometimes we want everything to be so visible and we can't see it all the time. And I think about a plant that's right when it germinates, the seeds growing underneath the soil and the roots are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can't see nothing. All of a sudden you see a sprout 2 months later or 6 weeks later, however long it takes it to sprout. And we expect sometimes the sprout to come up right away in our business or in our life because we don't see that. And I love what you're saying. You got to give yourself time to understand that even the smallest step is going in the right direction. Because sometimes I believe this, and let me know your perspective on this. Is sometimes we minimize the small steps.
Absolutely, we do. And one of the other things that when I'm working with people, and I do this even myself, is no matter how small, how big, how scary, is when you take a moment to sit, lie down, whatever it is that you're doing or where you are in the moment, is to take seconds, take minutes, and visualize yourself in taking those steps of what it is that you need to do. And when you see yourself doing that and having that victory, it just makes that process so much easier. You know, oftentimes if I need to go live and do a video, or if I need to have a conversation with someone, if I can take the time, Daniel, and I can just close my eyes and I can walk myself through that. There's so many times in the steps of my banking career of 34 years, each step, each goal that I had, whether it was completing a project or having a conversation with a subordinate or whatever, those steps became so much more tolerable or easier to go through or to even achieve because I was able to visualize myself going through those steps and making myself successful through those. And the step of visualization is so powerful.
How often? I love that we're talking about this because we should do it all the time. I do have a vision board, and I definitely utilize our vision board. But I would say probably to be honest, is we do the visualization maybe once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. So on Saturdays, what we do is we'll stay in and we'll put on this music and we'll do it for 20 minutes. And we really go through the process of visualizing our next home that we want to buy on the lake. Right. I'm sharing my story. I'm sharing my dream with you too. So that's part of what we do is
Yeah.
the vision that you have, share it with people.
Yes.
And so we visualize ourselves on our in our lake home, and then we visualize ourselves on the house that we want to buy. And it's like you feel it. And I love the word that you sell. So many times we don't allow ourselves to feel it. Talk to us. What happens when someone's visualizing, say, maybe buying that dream car, or just maybe it's more health wise, maybe it's losing that 10 pounds or 20 pounds that they want to lose. Talk to us about that.
I'll share with you, I'll take you back to many years ago when I even learned about visualization. I had a boss one time who brought me in his office and he asked me, he said, "Do you understand the process of goal setting?" And I said, "Sure, I do." Because Daniel, I felt like I knew all about goal setting. But when he took me through that process, I really didn't understand it to the fullness of what it can be. And so he gave me this piece of paper, and that piece of paper was about this big, and it had three goals, and it had the steps to take to get to those three goals. And then you defined those three steps a little bit further, and it had the visualization process of that. And so I wrote down those three goals, and then I wrote down what I was going to do to get to those three goals. And he told me, he said, "I want you to take this piece of paper and I want you to tape it to your desk. And every day I want you to look at that. And I want you to see yourself in these three positions or these three goals, whatever it was." And I'm going to tell you, Daniel, I'm going to get very upfront here. One of those things was I wanted his position. That
Oh,
was that was one of my goals, was I wanted his position.
yeah.
And what was I going to do to get his position? Well, I started seeing myself working with my teammates. I started seeing myself supervising them. I started seeing myself doing what he was doing every day. And I opened that drawer every day, and that's what I did before I ever started work. So I started seeing myself doing his job every day. And before I knew it, he was asking me to help him do his job responsibilities. And then the next thing I knew, I'm getting called up to the CEO's office. And the CEO's like, "Are you doing his job?" And I'm like, I don't want to answer that question. And so he was like, "It's okay, we know." And I was mortified. But long story short, the next thing I knew, Daniel, was I was in that position. And it was all from me visualizing every day, every day, every day, and visualizing me doing that work. And then what happens is it all starts happening. Things take place to where your visualization of what you are visualizing comes to fruition. And so that was the start of what I knew goal setting and visualization and getting your dreams, all that takes place. And that was the start of my dream and goal setting process for the rest of my life. I implemented that from that day forward. And that is how things happen for me to this day. That
Okay.
is the process I've implemented, and I teach that to people today.
So
And
let me ask you this. How often, right? Because I'm hearing you talk about everyday visualization. I
Mhm.
think I need to do more visualization. I mean, of course, I go out there, I touch the dream, I feel the dream. We do the vision board, but I think the actual exercise of visualizing it, I
Mhm.
need it. I'm hearing you talk. I'm like, Daniel, you got to get on the ball here. So how you really visualized every single day you use visualization?
Yes. Daniel, I every success that I have in my life. Now, does it happen overnight? No. I mean, when I started my career at in banking, I had shared that, so I have no college degree. I have no college degree. I actually,
Well, me neither, so don't worry.
yeah. And
I have
so
an associate's, but I don't count the associates.
well, mine is it's a technical degree. And but when I started my career in banking, I was determined that, and I'm embarrassed, but not embarrassed to say this. I was determined that I was going to show my classmates that I could make as much money as they made having a career in or a college degree without having a college degree. I was determined. That was my goal. And so I was going to go to the top in banking and make darn good money doing it without that degree. And so by learning visualization and goal setting, did that for me. And so I had had conversations with people that had multiple degrees and, doctors, anesthesiologists. They were like, how do you do that? How did you do that? And I'm like, visualization and knowing what you wanted, and you go for it. You don't stop till you get it. It's determination. And it's doing what other people are not willing to do. There are people out there that want what you want, but they're not willing to do what you're willing to do to go get
Ooh, say it again. That's a boom right
it.
there, baby. Come on, let's say that again.
There's people who want what you want, but they're not willing to do what you do to go get it. And I mean, it's determination, it's investing in yourself, it's spending time doing what other people aren't willing to do. And I've done that. My education, I probably have spent more money investing in myself than people have spent going to college, learning what I know.
No, I love what you're
But
saying. Somebody out there is listening to this show right now. You're listening to this episode and you're beating yourself up. You're beating yourself up because you're disqualifying yourself because you don't have a degree. And I'm not knocking a degree. My son just graduated
me
from
either.
Texas State. My daughter has her master's. But what I am saying is sometimes it's God opens the door for you. Sometimes God qualifies you when you're not qualified. Like think about Daniel Gomez Inspires, right? I'm over here coaching successful businessmen and women, millionaires, multimillionaires. And it's just like, who would have thought, right? But it's the fact that you're doing the work inside yourself.
Mhm.
You're changing yourself from the inside out. So I don't know who needs to hear this on the show today, but stop disqualifying yourself from what God wants to give you. Stop disqualifying yourself and you see an opportunity come up and you're like, oh, well, I don't have a degree in this, or oh, I'm not qualified in that. Who says? A lot of time I was having a conversation with this one businessman yesterday, and he goes, Daniel, you want to know the truth? One of the things that I really apply in business equals what? I'd rather hire somebody who doesn't maybe have the knowledge or the skill set, but they have the right attitude, the
Yes.
teachable personality. That person will go further than if
Mhm.
I embrace someone coming in new to our organization that has the skill set, but they have bad habits with it, or they have their own philosophy of how it should be. Because I'd rather take somebody that doesn't know anything, but a great attitude and a great personality, and they're coachable and really want to learn, I'll take that person because I've seen it happen over and over in my business. And it goes to what you're saying right now. Sometimes we undervalue ourselves of what we can accomplish or what we can do. And sometimes you just need a chance, you need an opportunity. And it's right in front of you. But the fact that you don't even take action to show up for an interview or to go out there and say, you know what, maybe I can be an entrepreneur. Maybe I can start my business. You got to give yourself. And I love what you said. Everybody wants the life on the other side of the trouble or the adversity that we go through, but they don't want to go through the adversity. And it doesn't work that way because you won't be able to handle the blessing on the other side. You can't handle the blessing on the other side because you don't have the strength, you don't have the character. And if you look at everybody that achieved something great like yourself, you had to go through some adversities to grow you to become not just the top of now successful as an entrepreneur, but in the banking world.
Yes. I mean, and there's a lot of adversity, that comes with that. You're knocked down multiple times. You have to deal with the jealousies. You have to deal with, because there may be other people who are just as qualified as you to get a promotion that opens up. And, sometimes there were situations of why her, what makes her the person. But then when you get in the position and they see the work you do, then people are like, oh, now I see why her. But
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And sometimes, there's more work than there is pay. But it was never, to me, it was never about the pay for me. It was always, to me, it was always, I had that mentality of, I was on a mission. I was on a mission to show something that was way back in my past.
You know what comes to mind when you said that? I wanna just kind of, because you said to me and I was right. It was hard. And you know what came to mind when you said that, right? They don't see the jealousy. They don't see all these things going on. Many people, you need to understand this, ladies and gentlemen, that you have to have the bandwidth and you have to have the capacity to handle that next level of position, that next level of business. And many people don't understand that that's what, right? So many people, they win the lottery, but they don't have the bandwidth to handle that amount of finances. They don't have the capacity to receive that level of just financial energy and blessing. Talk to us about what's your perspective on how important is growing and developing your bandwidth and your capacity? Because I think so many people miss that part, and that's a huge part of becoming that future you that you're growing into.
I mean, you have to definitely grow your bandwidth. There's times, Daniel, that I'm spending so much time growing me that I forget about the other things that are important. I forget oftentimes about the things that should be important to me. I do so much personal growth oftentimes that I forget about my community. I forget about my family. I forget about the things that should be important to me, my health, because I'm so pouring into me, because I will say there's the fear factor of not knowing enough. And then reality has to sit in. And then I have to go back and remember, what are those non-negotiables that we should be setting? Okay, I can't let the growth of me, goes back to way back when, interrupt my family. I can't let it interrupt my community, because if I let it interrupt those things, then it interrupts the very thing that I don't want it to interrupt: my business, my growth, my finances. And my goodness, I have enough in here to last me the rest of my life.
So let me ask you this: what's what's a non-negotiable for you? That way people can get an understanding of what a non-negotiable is.
A non-negotiable for me is spending time with my family. I mean, when it comes to my grandkids, and I may even get emotional talking about my non-negotiables, but for me right now, when I was growing my banking career, I neglected some time with my son when he was young. And today, to really make up for that, I do not neglect time with my kids, and I do not neglect time with my grandkids. If I get the call that they need me, I'm dropping whatever it is. And I mean, unless it is we've signed a contract for something or, something along that line. Um, I spend time. We vacation. They live 2 hours away from me. I go and spend days with them now. My family is a non-negotiable. I spend time with them.
I love that.
And
Let me ask you
uh,
this, because I like that we're talking about this because that's a non-negotiable for you. Would you say maybe if you were younger or you were starting that new business, would you be more flexible on that? Because I think one thing the reason I ask that is because sometimes I see new entrepreneurs, right? They're starting their business and they're barely 6 months to a year into it. And then it's like they get a little bit of momentum and then they stop because they want to go and disappear for a week or two. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You got to come back.
mm.
And like, well,
Yeah.
family is important. I said, I understand that, but would you say that it's a little bit different maybe for someone who's kind of new to the entrepreneurship,
Mhm,
new into business? Because you got to kind of make
mhm.
maybe a couple of years of sacrifices, and on the flip
Absolutely,
side,
you do.
tell us.
Absolutely, you do. If you don't put everything you've got into creating that business, I mean, your family has to be on board with you. If they're not 100% into mama's entrepreneurship or daddy's entrepreneurship or the family's entrepreneurship, there's not going to be an entrepreneurship in 5 years. I mean, the family has to put everything they have into building that initially. I mean, unless you're blessed enough to come out of the gate with a boom. I mean, and
Yeah.
typically that's not going to happen. I mean, you have to put blood, sweat, and tears in. I mean, I worked when I first started, to in banking to get to that EVP director position. I ended at in 34 years. I mean, I worked, it felt like 24/7.
Wow.
Um, I mean, I worked a lot of hours. I mean, I would still be there oftentimes at 11 o'clock at night, sometimes till 2 a.m. I didn't leave till the job was done. And so a lot of people think banking is banking out bankers hours. There's no bankers hours in banking. That's a
Yes.
myth. And so if you want a career and you want to be wealthy, there's sacrifices you have to make. And it takes a while to have the true freedom life that you want and deserve. But you can have some small non-negotiables that do include your family, but you can't have the type of freedom that people want and it include family the first year. Not going to happen.
I just thank you for opening your heart with us, Tonya, because
Mhm.
this is somebody needs to hear what we're talking about. And I want to circle back, right? Because so many times when you were talking about not having that college degree and we put so much emphasis on that. And sometimes we have more than we realize already inside of us. Everything that we
Mhm.
have, it's already inside of us. And something
Mhm.
that I always say, right, is God's got my back. And something that's real that's helped me that I
Mhm.
people say, Daniel, I'm like, well, a big part of it is because I made God my CEO and
Mhm.
God's favor is a real thing. God's favor exists. And well, what do you mean by God's favor? I've never heard that. Well, yeah, like when you're honoring God and you know And I'm not saying it's a checklist to go to church every Sunday. That's not what I'm saying. I said, but when you go to church, when you go and your heart's there, or when you wake up early Monday through Thursday, Friday, and you're praying and spending time with God, reading his word, and you do the right things ethically in business, and you try to do your best. Is anybody perfect? By no means are we perfect, but you find favor in God's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, because of God's favor, our business is where we're at today, and we're getting ready to explode even more. How has
Mm-hmm.
God's favor impacted you? Give us two or three just times that you're like, man, that was just God's favor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, what comes to mind for me is we had gone to on vacation a couple of weeks, a couple of months ago already, not a couple of weeks, it's already 2 months. And we were at this budget line. I mean, the line was long, and the lady goes, "Who here is an Advantage Plus?" And I'm like, "Hey, that's us." So we went from the back of the line and the front of the line. We really bypassed almost 70 people, and that's God's favor.
Wow. Yes, yes, that is great. We had something similar like that happen at Disney a couple of years ago. But the first thing that comes to my mind, again, it goes back to banking, but I got a call from the bank president. At this time, I was a branch manager at one of our branches, and I got a call, and we were starting this big growth plan, and I got a call from the president, and he said, "Tonya, we're at the point to where we need to start this operations department, and we would like for you to head it up, start it from the ground up. It would be you and one other employee." And I was like, "Oh man, really?" And I was like, I'd love this job. And I'd only been in that role for a year. And I was like, "Can I think about it?" And he was like, "You can think about it, but this is what we want you to do." And I was like, "Okay, well, really let me think about it." And I remember at lunch, I went out to my vehicle, and my Bible was sitting in the seat, in the passenger seat. And I was like, "Oh," I remember saying, "Lord, I need a word. I don't know what the word is, but I need a word." And I remember just opening up my Bible, and it opened up to Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope in a future." And I was like, "Wow, okay, he's not going to harm me. He's got plans for me. He's going to give me hope in the future. I'm going to trust him, whichever way he leads me, I'll follow. I'm going to do whatever they say." And at this point, I had already, had gone through several promotions. I had already seen myself to this position, being this branch manager. That's what I really wanted to do. And I thought, I'd only been here a year. I hated to leave it because I loved it, and it was in a town that I really wanted to be in. But I thought, okay, because this was going to take me back to a town that I didn't want to be in. But I was like, okay, I'll respond and I'll do this. And I was a little scared because it was starting something brand new, didn't know a whole lot about, but I'll do it. And I grew that, from 2 people to 3 people, 4 people. And when I left it to go start another brand new department, there was 22 people. But the thing is had I not done that and started that new department, I would not then have had the opportunity to start another new department, then start something else new, and then ended up where I ended up for this full growth plan to get me to where I ultimately ended. The opportunity is each thing that I did was to start something brand new, which I think ultimately each thing prepared me to get me to where I am today, because I'm always starting something brand new. I'm not afraid. I am afraid, but I always remember back to Jeremiah 29:11. He has plans for me, plans to prosper me and not harm me.
I
And
love that.
so that is something that I always remember. God is always placing me in positions that are good for me. And so that's
That's
the
powerful.
main thing that comes to mind.
I want you to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Where right now, maybe you've been praying for a sign, you've been asking God, show me the way, and you just happen to be listening to this episode right now, the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show with the amazing Tonya as my guest, and you hearing this, and you know in your heart that that's the path you're supposed to go down. You know you're supposed to take that position. You know you're supposed to launch that new service or product, but you're scared because maybe it's an investment, and you're allowing the fact that you don't just know what's going to happen on the other side of that. God is telling you right now, He's with you. Let Him guide you. And I would say this at this point, Tonya is right. You have to not trust in your own abilities, but trust in God's abilities. God is with you every step of the way. And I love you sharing that, because imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, if Tonya would have passed up on that operations position, she wouldn't be the person she is today. Stop running back to the familiar, ladies and gentlemen. Stop running back to the familiar and embrace the new that God has for you. Embrace the new. Don't be scared. I wouldn't be here right now. Believe me, I was scared, but Tonya, I'm loving this conversation. What is the best business advice that you've ever received?
Best business advice I ever received, again, was from my bank president. He was doing an evaluation for me, Daniel, and this was when I was growing. And actually, I was in that operations position that he had moved me into, and I was growing that department. And he was preparing me for the next promotion. And he said to me, he said, Tonya, right now you're in a situation to where you need to be grooming these individuals that you're training or that you're growing in this department. But he said, right now, you don't have a replacement for all of the responsibilities that you personally are carrying. And he said, I can't move you to your next position because you don't have a replacement. And I'll tell you, Daniel, that hit me so hard that I said, there will be a replacement for me within the next month. This was on a Friday. That following week, I went back and I looked at the entire team. And at that time, it was a team of 12. I went back and I decided who was going to replace me so that I could move to that next position. Once I decided, I started training that individual to replace me. And then I decided who was going to replace that individual. And from that day forward, I had a backup for every person in that department. And then I'll tell you, when I left my role 4 years ago, I had 22 trainers that reported to me, and all 22 trainers were capable of doing my job as an EVP retail trainer of the entire bank. So
Love it. I love it.
every person that reported to me could do my role. So that was the best piece of advice, was never not have someone who could replace you in your role. And so if I could take one more moment to share something else. Just over a year ago, my business was just consulting, Daniel. And I put myself and my team, I had a team of 5. I put myself back into basically banking. We were consulting with just banks.
Yes.
And we were working a lot of hours just like we were in banking. And I said to myself, I just put myself in a role that I removed myself from, and that's not what I want. And so I let some of them go. And two that had previously worked for me in banking, I went to them and I said, if you will become consultants, I will do this for you. I will go to every client that we have and I will ask them if they will renegotiate our contracts and give them to you as consultants. I'm going to step away and I'm going to start something new tomorrow. I was going to just walk
Yeah.
away. And so they couldn't believe that I would just give them the business. And so I did. I called, they, of course, they were elated.
Yes.
And I called every client. There were some clients who didn't want to see me leave. They wanted to hire me, and me work for them.
Yeah.
But I said, no. I said, I'm not fulfilled doing this.
Oh, that's powerful
There's
right there.
more for me. I'm not helping the people that I need to be helping. I'm not networking, building relationships, and helping the world like I need to be helping. And so I gave those two, if you think about it, what
Yes.
this did for those two people, it helped two people start consulting businesses. And I gave them those clients. And I left the next day because I remembered God had plans for me and He wasn't going to harm me, let me down, and He would help me the next day. So the next day I said, I'm just going to start coaching, consulting, training, speaking. I'm going to go do what I know what to do.
I love it. I love
And
it.
God never let me down. I've not stopped. I've just continued. I just started doing something different.
You
And
know, and
that's the thing.
the lesson in that, ladies and gentlemen, is Tonya had the courage to walk away from what
That's
she
what.
knew.
Mhm.
She ran back to the familiar kind of in her new business as a consultant, but she had to walk away from that.
Mhm.
What is it right now, ladies and gentlemen, as we're coming to the end of this episode, that you know that you know that you know that you need to walk away from your position, that you need to walk away from that career, that job you had? I know it's scary. Believe me, I've been there. I was in the automotive industry for 20 years and I walked away from that and we had a great living. But I walked away and started becoming Daniel Gomez Inspires top motivational speaker. What do you need to walk away from that God's putting in your heart right now that you know you need to walk away? Maybe it's
Yes.
a relationship. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a career, a job. What do you need to walk away from? Maybe for you, it's alcohol. What is it for you that you know right now that you need to walk away from? Man, Tonya, this has been an amazing
Mhm.
episode. I want to ask you one last question before we come to the ending. What is a quote or a scripture that you rely on in the time of adversity?
Hmm. Quote or a scripture. You know, I typically go to songs. I mean, that Jeremiah 29:11 is a scripture for me.
Yes.
Um,
We can go with that one. I don't want you to
I
overthink it.
that I go to songs and peace, peace, wonderful peace is a song that I go to. Um, and the peace speaker because he is my peace speaker.
What song is that?
Um,
Is there a number that we can reference that way somebody can look it up?
it's actually the name of it is Peace Speaker. I can't recall who sings it, and my apologies. Maybe I
Okay,
can give
no,
it to you to put in the show notes.
no, it's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I'll give that to you to put in the show notes.
So, how do we get a hold of you? Somebody wants to work with Miss Tonya. How do we get a hold of you?
So I am pretty much everywhere. LinkedIn, Facebook, I am on Instagram, but not as much as I am on Facebook, and Alignable, which is a social media platform that is just now really getting out. But that is for businesses and entrepreneurs to build relationships. And that is really where I spend most of my time is there on Alignable. But for the community, Facebook is good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. And ladies and gentlemen, as we're coming to the end of this amazing show with Miss Tonya Gossage, she's amazing. She's a rock star. And thank you so much for being with us. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to DanielGomezGlobal.com. That's DanielGomezGlobal.com. Do our entrepreneurs assessment. It's something that we give back to the community. Fill it out. We'll give you a complimentary 45-minute discovery session. And don't forget, Saturday, September 8th and 9th, Friday and Saturday here in San Antonio, our Sticker Shock Speaking Academy right behind me. You see that. I want to see you on stage. I want to see you in San Antonio, Texas, Friday and Saturday, September 8th and 9th, here in San Antonio at the Norris Conference Center. I guarantee you your life's going to change because we're going to show you how to build that speaking business you want. Until next week, we'll see you here again on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show with another amazing guest. Tonya, thank you so much for joining us again. We'll see everybody next week. Thank you, guys. This is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and thank you for listening to our show today. Please share this episode with a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe to our show. And for listening to our show today, I want to give you a free gift. I want to invite you to our Millionaire Mind community. Text the word millionaire, that's millionaire, to 210-942-5059. Yes, join our community today and receive millionaire affirmations, inspirational quotes on a weekly basis. That's 210-942-5059. Text the word millionaire today and join our community. And once again, thank you for listening to our show.